I was in the middle of my usual Tuesday afternoon routine, black coffee, earbuds in, sorting invoices at the logistics firm I'd been working at for 3 years, when my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. Normally I let those go to voicemail, but something about it made me pause. Maybe it was the area code. It was from my hometown, a place I hadn't thought about in years. I hesitated. Then, stupidly, I picked up. Hello. There was a second of silence. Then a man's voice, cracked and unfamiliar, said, Nate? I froze. I hadn't heard that voice in over 15 years. I was 11 the last time I saw him. My father, Jack Ross. Who is this? I asked, though I already knew. It's your dad. My mind spiraled. My body froze so stiff I thought my spine might snap. The last memory I had of him was the back of his denim jacket as he walked out the front door, suitcase in hand, while my mom cried on the stairs. He never came back. Never called. Never wrote. Just poof, gone. You've got the wrong number, I said coldly, thumb hovering over the red button. I'm sick, Nate, he said quickly. I've got stage 4 liver cancer. It's spreading. They say it could be weeks, maybe less. I didn't speak. I know I don't deserve to ask you for anything, he said. But I have no one else. His voice cracked in a way that sounded real. Too real. I hung up. For the next 10 minutes, I stared at my screen, not seeing the invoices anymore. Just a blur of past trauma and unresolved fury boiling up through my chest. My phone buzzed again. Same number. I didn't answer this time. I just sat back and stared out the window, watching the rain trail down like something out of a melodramatic movie. I hadn't spoken to my dad since I was a kid. When he left, it was like someone just deleted a character from my life. No explanations. No letters. No birthdays. No sorry, buddy, I couldn't make it. Nothing. And now, this ghost from my childhood. This man who vanished without a trace. Wants me to be his lifeline? That night, I told my mom. We were eating takeout at her apartment. She still worked as a part-time nurse, even though she should have retired by now. She looked up from her low mane and blinked. He called you. I nodded, watching her closely. Said he's dying. Wants me to take care of him. The way her face shifted was something I hadn't seen since I was a kid. Rage, grief, and something sadder than either. She didn't cry, just quietly said, That man doesn't deserve a second of your time. Yeah, I muttered. But my thoughts were spiraling. But what if? What if what? She snapped. What if he's really sorry? What if he's learned his lesson? What if he suddenly decided after 15 years that you were worth knowing again? No, Nate. No. You don't owe him a damn thing. I didn't sleep much that night. Just laid in bed with my phone in my hand, rereading the call log like it might give me some kind of answer. Why now? Why me? A week went by. I didn't tell anyone else. Not my friends. Not my coworkers. But the thought lingered like smoke that wouldn't clear. I started Googling his name, trying to piece together what he'd been doing for the last 15 years. Nothing. No arrests. No big career milestones. No social media. It was like he'd gone underground. Then, Thursday afternoon, I got a voicemail. Just 30 seconds. Hey, Nate. It's still me. I'm sorry for everything. I wish I could explain, but there's no excuse. I'm scared, man. And I don't know who else to call. I'm staying in this hospice place in Rockford. Room 213. If you ever wanted answers, I'll be here. I played it 5 times. Room 213. My curiosity was killing me, and so was the thought of dying without answers. I'd spent my whole life filling in blanks about why he left, what I did wrong, why I wasn't enough. Maybe he could explain. I drove to Rockford 2 days later. I didn't tell my mom. Didn't tell anyone. The hospice building was one of those old brick places with peeling paint and the smell of rubbing alcohol and mildew baked into the wallpaper. I hesitated outside room 213 for a full minute before knocking. Come in. His voice. I opened the door, and there he was. Older. Smaller. His skin like paper, his eyes hollowed out. But it was him. Jack Ross. My father. His lips curved into a shaky smile. Hey, kid. I didn't smile back. I stepped into the room, letting the door fall shut behind me. It was quiet. You could hear the hum of the machines and the faint chirp of birds outside. You look just like your mom, he said softly. I'm not here for small talk, I replied, pulling a chair to the side of his bed. Start talking. His smile faded. He sighed, looked down at his hands. I made a lot of mistakes, but the biggest one was leaving. I thought I was doing you a favor, Nate. I thought you'd be better off by abandoning us. I asked, voice cracking. By letting me grow up thinking I wasn't good enough to keep you around? He shut his eyes. I was scared. Of responsibility. Of being a man. Of screwing it all up. Well, I snapped. Congrats. You did that anyway. Silence fell between us. He didn't defend himself. Didn't argue. Just nodded slowly. I deserve that. I stood up. Was that all? I asked. He looked up. I shimmering. No. I called because I want to make things right. If I can. Even just a little. I want to make things right, he'd said. I stood frozen, unsure whether to scream or laugh. Right? 15 years of silence, of watching my mom work double shifts, of growing up with an empty chair at every school recital and birthday, and now he wanted to fix it? You're about 14 years too late for that, I said coldly. He didn't argue. Instead, he just looked away, and for a second, he seemed like a man who'd already been sentenced. Maybe not by a court, but by time, by cancer, by the regret chewing through his insides faster than any tumor ever could. I know, he said softly. But you came. That means something. I didn't respond. I didn't want to give him the satisfaction. But truthfully, I wasn't even sure why I'd come. Closure? Curiosity? Pity? He coughed, a dry, hacking sound that made his whole frame shudder. A nurse knocked and peeked in. He waved her off. I could see the clipboard in her hand. Morphine dosage. DNR status. He was dying. No doubt about it. Tell me where you've been, I said, sitting back down. He hesitated. After I left, I tried to build a life. I moved out west, got a job in a warehouse. Met someone. Didn't last. Nothing did. I kept thinking I'd reach out to you, but the longer I waited, the more I convinced myself it would hurt you more to hear from me. That's bold. I know it is, he cut in, surprising me. I didn't know how to come back after what I did. I shook my head. You didn't even try. I was weak, he admitted. Cowardly. And selfish. That part, at least, I believed. He took a shaky breath, then reached under his blanket and pulled out a small, tattered notebook. He held it out to me. What's this? A journal. I started writing in it the day I left. Letters I never sent. Notes I wrote to you, about you. I don't expect forgiveness, Nate. But maybe, someday, when I'm gone, you'll read them. And maybe it'll help you understand. I didn't take it at first. I just stared at the notebook like it was something radioactive. Eventually, I reached out. My fingers grazed the leather cover. It was worn, soft, probably touched 1,000 times. My throat felt tight. He lay back, eyes fluttering shut from the effort. I'm tired, he whispered. Will you come back tomorrow? I didn't answer. I just walked out, the notebook heavy in my hand. That night, I drove past the exit to my apartment and ended up in the parking lot of the local 24-hour diner. Same one Mom used to take me to after long shifts, back when we had just enough quarters between us to split a grilled cheese and 2 sodas. I sat in the car, the rain tapping against the windshield, and finally opened the journal. The first page was dated October 5, 2008. Dear Nate, it read, Today I did the worst thing a father can do. I left. Not because I don't love you, but because I'm scared of what I'll become if I stay. My stomach turned. I flipped through pages, dozens, maybe hundreds, chronicling years of wandering, failed relationships, drunken confessions, moments where he said he saw a boy in a grocery store and thought it was me. Every page ended the same way. I miss you, buddy. I closed it and stared at the ceiling of my car, heart pounding. I didn't want this. I didn't ask for this pain. I came for answers, not a eulogy in pen and ink. The next day, I went back. Room 213. He was awake this time. Pale, but more alert. You read it? He asked. I nodded, slowly. Some of it. I never stopped loving you, he said. Even when I couldn't face you. You abandoned us. I know, he said, voice cracking. And I'm sorry. Every day since. We sat in silence for a while. Then I asked, what do you want from me? He looked surprised. Like he hadn't thought that far. I don't know. To not die alone, I guess. That hit me harder than I expected. For all the resentment and pain, there was still a part of me, a broken, buried piece, that didn't want to be the kind of person who left anyone to die alone. Even him. Especially him. That weekend, I drove my mom to a coffee shop and told her everything. The call. The visit. The journal. She sat in silence for a long time, her hands trembling around her cup. When she finally spoke, her voice was low and even. You have to do what feels right, Nate. But don't let guilt be the reason. I don't know what's right, I said. I'm still mad. I hate what he did, but I can't stop thinking about that room. The way he looked, like he was already halfway gone. She nodded. Then, without warning, she reached into her purse and handed me an old photo. It was me, maybe 4 years old, riding piggyback on his shoulders at a park I barely remembered. I held on to this, she said, because I hoped one day you'd ask about him. I hoped one day he'd come back. Tears slipped down her cheek. I hate him for what he did to us, but I don't want you to carry that hate forever. I didn't make any decisions that day, but that night, as I lay in bed, staring at the journal beside me, I started to wonder something I hadn't before. What if he hadn't called me because he needed saving? What if he'd called because he was finally ready to tell the truth? I started visiting him every few days. Not out of duty, not out of love. Just something in between. That gray place where grief hasn't landed yet, but the ache has already begun to settle. Jack, my father, was shrinking. His voice grew weaker, his bones more pronounced, his skin translucent like candle wax. Yet, somehow, his mind remained intact. Clear, sharp, regretful. Each visit, he tried to offer something, memories, stories, names of places he'd been. I nodded, listened, but didn't engage much. I still hadn't forgiven him. Not really. But I read the journal. One entry, from 2014, stuck with me. I saw a boy at the gas station. Looked just like Nate. Same eyes. I froze. He looked at me for a moment, then got in a truck and drove away. I wanted to chase after him. I didn't. What would I even say? Hi, I'm the guy who abandoned you. I read that line over and over, something burning behind my eyes. Then I found a page paperclip near the back. Different handwriting. Smaller. Slanted. It wasn't his. I brought the notebook to the next visit. Who wrote this? I asked, pointing to the clipped page. He squinted, then smiled faintly. Ah, that's from Lena. Lena, my sister. Your aunt. I stared at him. I have an aunt? He nodded. We haven't spoken in years. Not since I left. She tried to get me to come back. Told me to stop being a coward. I couldn't face her either. Where is she now? His face fell. Passed. 3 years ago. Cancer, too. A lump grew in my throat. She knew about me? She did. She used to send you Christmas cards, birthday gifts. I told her not to. I didn't want you to get confused. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. All those years, I whispered, I thought nobody cared. She cared, he said, eyes glassy. She cared so much. I left that visit shaking. There was a whole piece of my family I never knew existed. Someone who tried to stay connected. Who probably would have been in my life if you hadn't shut her out. I called my mom that night. Asked if she remembered the name Lena Ross. She went quiet. She used to send letters to the house. I never opened them. Just threw them away. I was angry, Nate. I didn't want to keep any of them around. I'm sorry. We both sat in silence. I wish I'd known, I said eventually. Me too, she replied. Me too. A week later, the nurse pulled me aside as I entered the hospice. He's asking for you, she said gently. A lot. I nodded, already feeling the dread curling in my gut. I stepped into room 213. He looked worse than ever. Sunken, breathing shallow. A machine clicked rhythmically beside him. Nate, he whispered. I need to tell you something. Before it's too late. I sat down, heart thudding. There's a safety deposit box, he began, voice ragged. Bank of Leland. Box 428. Key is taped under the drawer in the nightstand. He closed his eyes, breath hitching. What's in it? He didn't answer. Just muttered something barely audible. Lena, she said you'd hate me. She was right. I waited, but he didn't say more. His hand went limp in mine. His chest still moved, but barely. He didn't speak again that night. I didn't go to the bank the next day, or the day after. I told myself I didn't care what was in that box. But the truth? I was terrified. What if it was nothing? What if it was something horrible? A last attempt at manipulation? Or worse, proof that he'd started a whole new life, with a new kid, a new family, while we were scraping by. But on the third morning, I drove to Leland. The safety deposit key was exactly where he said it'd be. Taped to the inside of his hospice nightstand drawer, hidden beneath layers of forgotten cough drops and half-used chapsticks. I went to the bank. Asked to access box 428. The manager escorted me to the vault. It felt surreal, like I was in a movie, or a nightmare. Inside was a small tin box, labeled in fading pen, for Nate. My hand shook as I opened it. Inside were a stack of photos. Me as a kid. birthday parties, soccer games, school plays, all from a distance. Grainy, zoomed in, taken from behind fences and across parking lots. Receipts for gifts I never received. Toys, books, even a bike. All returned. A bundle of unopened letters, rubber-banded together. All addressed to me. I dropped to the floor of the vault and wept. I spent the entire evening reading those letters. They were full of things he could never say aloud. Regrets, hopes, memories, the pain of watching from afar, of knowing he didn't deserve to be part of my life, but wanting so desperately to be. One line haunted me. I didn't leave because I stopped loving you, Nate. I left because I didn't think I could be the father you needed. And I didn't want to break you the way my father broke me. For the first time in my life, I saw him, not as the villain in my story, but as a deeply broken man. Still not excusable, still not forgivable, but maybe understandable. When I visited room 213 again, he was asleep, machines still beeping. I sat beside him for an hour, just sat, and whispered. I read the letters. A tear slipped down his cheek, even though his eyes stayed shut. That was the last time I saw him alive. He died 2 nights later, alone. The call came at 2:13 a.m. A nurse from the hospice unit, her voice low and measured. I'm so sorry, Nate. Your father passed about 30 minutes ago. I sat up in bed, numb. The room was quiet. No dramatic music, no movie-perfect tears. Just a dull ache behind my eyes and an overwhelming sense of something unfinished. I stared at the ceiling. Then I got up, pulled on jeans, and drove. Not to the hospice. To the overlook just outside town. The one where he used to take me as a kid. We'd sit on the hood of his truck and count headlights on the road below. I hadn't been there in years. But that night, it felt like the only place I could breathe. The sky was black and scattered with stars, and the wind whipped across the ledge like it had teeth. I took out the last letter from the box, the one on top, marked for when I'm gone. And I read it. Nate, if you're reading this, it means I didn't get to say goodbye the way I wanted. I hope you found the photos, the letters, the receipts. I hope you know I never stopped caring. I broke. Somewhere along the line, I became my father, and instead of fighting it, I ran. I watched you grow up from a distance. You became everything I wasn't. Brave, loyal, kind. And I need you to know something I've never told anyone. The reason I left wasn't just fear. It was protection. There are things about our family, about me, that I kept hidden. Things that I was afraid would ruin you. Ask your mother about August 19th, 2007. She won't want to talk. But she knows. And you deserve the truth. I love you, Dad. I folded the letter, hands trembling. August 19th, 2007. I couldn't remember anything specific about that date. I would have been 10. A time when everything felt like a blur anyway. The next morning, I called my mom. Nate? She answered, groggy. He's gone. A pause. I'm sorry. There's something else, I said. He left a letter. Said you'd know about August 19th. Silence. Nate. Don't lie to me, I said sharply. Not now. She sighed. I could practically hear her fingers rubbing against her temple through the phone. That night was the reason I told him to leave. What happened? She hesitated. Then, in a trembling voice, she said, he didn't hit me. I want to be clear about that. But he scared me. Bad. She explained. They'd gotten into a fight. Not unusual. But that night was different. He'd come home late, stinking of whiskey and gasoline. Said he'd lost his job. Again. Blamed her. Blamed me. Said we were dragging him down. He didn't hit her. But he threw a picture frame against the wall, one of us as a family, and shattered the glass across the living room. Then he locked himself in the garage for hours. When she finally went to check on him, she found him passed out behind the wheel of his truck, engine running, garage door closed. He could have killed himself. Or us. That was the night she gave him an ultimatum. Get help. Or get out. He chose the latter. I felt like I'd been doused in cold water. All those years, I'd imagined he'd simply walked away. That he didn't care. But in truth, he was spiraling. And she had to protect us from becoming collateral damage. I sat in that knowledge for a long time. Then something else clicked. Mom, I said, why did you never tell me? She sighed. Because I didn't want you to hate him. I figured one day, maybe you'd want to find him. And I didn't want my story to poison that. But you let me hate myself, I said quietly, for not being enough to make him stay. Her breath caught. Oh, Nate. She didn't have an answer. Because there wasn't one. The funeral was small. No church. No priest. Just a graveside service with two strangers from the hospice, a nurse, and me. He didn't have many friends left. No extended family. No one, really, except me. I buried him with the journal. And on the back page, I wrote, "I don't forgive you, but I'm trying to understand you." That has to be enough. The next week, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Just my name and neat handwriting. Inside was a single photo, me as a baby, asleep on his chest. Behind us, a woman I didn't recognize. Young, blonde, smiling. And a note. "You don't know the whole story yet. But I do. If you want answers, come to 194 Alder Lane. I'll be waiting." No name. No date. Just a location. That was when I realized. Maybe Jack Ross wasn't the only one keeping secrets. I stared at the note for hours before making a move. 194 Alder Lane. No name. No explanation. Just a promise of answers. I Googled the address. It was a tiny cabin just outside Millgrove, a town about an hour from where my dad had been staying. Remote. Wooded. The kind of place you'd pick if you didn't want to be found. I didn't tell anyone I was going. Didn't know what I was expecting. A secret sibling? A lost lover? Another ghost with more guilt to pour on my shoulders? Whatever it was, I needed to know. It was a gray morning when I pulled into the gravel drive. Pine trees towered above the cabin, and the air smelled like rain and old wood. There was a rusted pickup in the driveway and a wind chime swaying gently from the porch. I walked up and knocked. A woman answered. Mid-50s, maybe. Gray streaked through her hair, but her eyes were sharp, familiar. Familiar in a way that made my gut twist. "You're Nate," she said. I nodded. "And you are." She stepped aside. "Come in." The inside of the cabin was simple. Bookshelves, a stone fireplace, mismatched furniture. On the wall was a photo of her and Jack. Younger. Smiling. His arm around her shoulders. "You knew him," I said. "I did," she replied softly. "We were close. A long time ago." She sat on a faded couch and gestured for me to do the same. I stayed standing. "So why did you send that photo?" "Because you deserve to see all of them," she said. "Not just the part that left." She reached for a box on the table and slid it toward me. Inside were dozens of letters, handwritten, folded neatly, and photos I'd never seen. Jack in a military uniform. Jack holding a baby. Jack laughing beside a woman who was not my mother. "I met Jack in 1991, she began. "Before he ever met your mom. We were together for a year. Then he left, suddenly. Disappeared." My chest tightened. "So, you're saying he had another life? Another kid?" She shook her head. "No. No other children. Just secrets. He was in and out of rehab. Struggled with PTSD. Every time he tried to get better, he'd fall again." She handed me a letter, addressed in my father's handwriting. "I didn't know about you until last year," she said. "He called me when he got his diagnosis. Said he was dying. Said he'd screwed up the best things in his life. You were one of them." I opened the letter. Inside were words written in a shaky hand. "Nate, you're the best thing I ever made. And the thing I failed hardest at. If you're reading this, I hope it means you're looking for truth, not just blame. There were so many things I wanted to tell you, but I never had the courage. I didn't just leave because of the fight that night. I left because I got a call from a man I owed money to. Bad people. Dangerous ones. I knew if I stayed, they'd come after you. After your mom. So I ran. I figured being a coward was better than being a target. Maybe it was. Maybe it wasn't. But I never stopped watching over you. Dad." I sat down, legs suddenly too heavy to stand. The woman, her name was Ellie, watched me with something like sympathy, but not pity. "Why didn't he go to the cops?" I asked. She shrugged. He never trusted them. And by the time he cleaned up his life, it was too late. He said he was radioactive. Said he didn't want to bring danger back to your doorstep. "He could have told me," I whispered. "I think he wanted to," she said. But the shame, the years, they got too heavy. I spent the next hour flipping through the letters and photos. It was like discovering a man I never met, who wore the same face as the one I hated. A man who tried, who failed, who ran, but who, in his own broken way, loved me. I thanked Ellie. She hugged me before I left, gently, like someone closing a book for the last time. "Nate," she said as I opened the door. "You don't have to forgive him. Just don't let the hate rot you from the inside." I nodded. Then I left. Weeks passed. I returned to my life. My job. My quiet apartment. But something inside me had shifted. I began to write. At first just fragments, memories, thoughts, questions. Then full letters. To my dad. To my mom. To myself. One night, I stood in front of the fireplace and tossed the last of his letters in. Watched them curl and blacken in the flames. It wasn't about revenge. It was release. Sometimes, I still visit that overlook. I bring coffee and sit on the hood of my car like we used to. Not because I want to remember the pain, but because it reminds me I survived it. Epilogue. I didn't forgive Jack Ross, but I stopped needing to. In the end, he wasn't the villain I made him out to be. Just a broken man running from shadows he didn't know how to fight. And maybe, just maybe, by facing those shadows myself, I've finally found a way out of them.